Hey everyone, welcome back to Fluent Minds podcast, the show where we dive deep into improving and learning English easily and funny via podcasts. I'm your host, Donna, and today I am absolutely thrilled to have someone on who embodies the spirit of curiosity and connection. Olivia. She's a passionate polyglot, a language educator, and a firm believer that learning a new language is more than just memorizing words. It's about opening doors to new experiences, perspectives, and relationships. Olivia, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Donna. I'm really excited to be here and talk about one of my absolute favorite topics, learning languages.
It's a topic that never gets old, right? I mean, language is how we understand and connect with each other. It's how cultures evolve, how ideas spread, how everything really functions. I've been wanting to have this conversation with you for a long time because I feel like language learning can be really intimidating for people.
Absolutely.
So let's start with that. Why do you think learning a new language feels so daunting to so many people?
That's such a great starting point. Honestly, I think a lot of the fear around learning a new language comes from the way we were taught in traditional settings, like school. For many of us, the experience was all about getting the grammar perfect, memorizing vocabulary lists, and the dreaded oral exams, right?
Yes.
There's this pressure to be fluent immediately, which isn't realistic. And I think that mindset makes people feel like they're either good at languages or they're not. When the truth is, anyone can learn a new language. It just takes time and practice.
Yes, I can totally relate. I remember taking French in high school, and it felt like this massive mountain to climb, with all these rules and conjugations. But now, there's this huge shift toward apps and interactive platforms that are making language learning more accessible and, dare I say, fun. What do you think about that? Have these new tools changed the game?
Absolutely, Donna. Language learning apps like Duolingo, Babbel, and even more immersive platforms like Rosetta Stone have revolutionized the process. They make it possible to practice daily in bite-sized chunks, which is so much more approachable than an hour-long class twice a week. These platforms focus on consistency and real-world usage, which is key because language is meant to be lived, not just studied. What's even more exciting is that these tools gamify the experience, making it more engaging. You get instant feedback, which is huge because you're not left guessing if you're doing it right. But that being said, while apps are amazing for getting started, they're just one piece of the puzzle. To really become proficient in a language, you need to immerse yourself in the culture and practice speaking with native speakers as much as possible.
That makes so much sense. So it's like, the apps are kind of like the gym, right? They're where you build your language muscle, but then you've got to take that muscle and actually use it in real life, with real conversations.
Exactly, yes. It's all about applying what you learn in context. You can spend hours learning vocabulary or practicing grammar, but until you use those words in a conversation, they're just theoretical. And that's where people get stuck sometimes. They're afraid of making mistakes, so they don't try to speak at all. But making mistakes is actually an essential part of the process. It's how you improve. I always tell my students that if you're not making mistakes, you're not learning.
That's such a great point. So for someone who's just starting out, let's say they've picked up an app and learned the basics, how would you suggest they take that next step? What can they do to move from learning on an app to speaking with confidence in real life?
Great question. First off, I always encourage people to seek out language exchange partners. There are websites like Tandem or HelloTalk where you can connect with native speakers who are looking to practice your language. And you can exchange knowledge. It's a win-win situation because they help you and you help them. Plus, it's real-life practice without the pressure, since the other person is also learning. Another thing is to consume content in that language as much as possible. Watch shows, listen to podcasts, read books. Even if you don't understand everything, you're training your brain to recognize patterns and get a feel for how the language is used naturally. You'd be surprised how much you absorb just by surrounding yourself with the language.
I love that. It's like language immersion without needing to travel abroad.
Exactly. Traveling is amazing if you can do it, but in today's world, you can create an immersive environment at home. The internet has made it possible to access media in any language from anywhere in the world, which is something we should totally take advantage of.
Great.
One trick I like to use with my students is encouraging them to change the language settings on their phone and social media.
Nice.
That way, they're interacting with the language in a familiar context, and it's part of their daily life without them even thinking about it.
Oh, that's such a smart idea. That would definitely force you to learn quickly when you can't even read your notifications without some translation.
Absolutely.
Speaking of learning quickly, I've always been curious. How long does it realistically take to learn a new language? I know it depends on the person, but do you have any benchmarks or expectations to set?
That's one of the questions I get asked the most. And you're right, it really depends on a lot of factors. The language you're learning, your native language, how much time you can dedicate to it, and the methods you're using all play a role. For example, if you're a native English speaker learning Spanish, you might find it easier than if you were learning Mandarin or Arabic because Spanish shares more similarities with English. But in general, I'd say with consistent practice, maybe an hour a day, you can reach conversational fluency in a language like Spanish or French within 6 to 12 months. That's not to say you'll be perfect, but you'll be able to hold conversations and understand basic media. For more complex languages, it might take a bit longer, but the key is persistence.
That's so encouraging. I think a lot of people imagine it'll take years before they can even speak a sentence, but it's really about what you just said, being consistent.
Okay.
Do you have any stories of students who were surprised by how quickly they picked up a new language?
Oh, definitely. One story that always sticks with me is a student who came to me with zero experience in Italian. She wanted to learn it because her family is Italian and she wanted to connect more with her roots. She was really nervous at first and kept saying, "I'm not good at languages." But after just a few months of weekly lessons and practicing on her own, she was able to have a basic conversation with her relatives at a family reunion. She told me afterward that it was one of the most rewarding experiences of her life. It's stories like that that remind me how powerful language learning can be. Not just for practical reasons, but for emotional and cultural connections too.
That's beautiful. It really highlights how learning a language can go beyond just the practical stuff, like ordering food or asking for directions. It's about connecting with people on a deeper level. Do you feel like learning languages has changed the way you view the world?
Oh, without a doubt. Learning different languages has opened my mind to different ways of thinking and understanding the world. Every language has its own nuances, its own way of expressing concepts that might not even exist in other languages. For example, in Japanese, there's this word wabi-sabi, which refers to the beauty of imperfection. There's no direct translation in English, but learning about that concept changed how I view not just art, but life in general. You start to see the world through new lenses with every language you learn, and it makes you appreciate the diversity of human experience even more.
That's amazing. It's like language learning is almost like philosophy in that sense. It expands your mind and your understanding of what it means to be human.
Exactly, and that's why I think learning a new language is one of the most enriching things you can do. It's not just about the practical skills, it's about personal growth, empathy, and connecting with others in a deeper way.
Wow, Olivia, this has been such an eye-opening conversation. I feel so inspired, and I'm sure our listeners do too. Before we wrap up, do you have any final tips or words of encouragement for those out there who are thinking about starting their language learning journey?
Absolutely. I would say, first and foremost, don't be afraid to start. It doesn't matter if you feel like you're too old or if you think you're not good at languages. Those are just mental blocks. The best time to start learning is now. Take small steps, be patient with yourself, and remember to enjoy the process. Celebrate your progress, no matter how small. And most importantly, don't be afraid to make mistakes, because that's where the magic happens.
What a perfect note to end on. Thank you so much, Olivia, for sharing your wisdom and your passion with us today. I'm sure you've inspired a lot of people to take that first step and embrace the adventure of learning a new language.
Thank you, Donna. It was a pleasure being here, and I hope I've helped some people feel more confident about diving into a new language.
You definitely have. And for our listeners out there, don't forget to subscribe to Fluent Minds podcast for more conversations like this one. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep connecting. Bye, everyone!